It was a bright Tuesday morning, and the young man whose name was Anthony was feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. At just 24 years old, he had already faced more struggles than most of his peers. He had graduated from college with a degree in computer science, but despite his hard work, he had been unable to land a full-time job. Most of his days were spent browsing job boards, sending out resumes, and preparing for interviews that, more often than not, led to nothing. It was frustrating to say the least. The dreams of a stable job and a promising future seemed like they were slipping further and further away. That morning, Anthony had an interview scheduled with a tech company he admired. He had spent the entire night preparing for it, practicing answers to possible questions and researching the company's history and goals. He knew this interview could change everything. It was his big chance, the one he had been waiting for, but as he woke up that morning, things didn't go as planned. His alarm didn't go off and he was running late. He quickly jumped out of bed, throwing on the first clothes he could find, and grabbed a quick breakfast. But even as he hurried, he felt a sense of dread. His car had been making strange noises for a few days, and he had a feeling something wasn't right. Despite his worries, he rushed to his car, hoping it would get him to the interview. But as he drove down the street, the worst happened. His car sputtered and then came to a complete stop. Panic set in as he tried to restart the engine, but it wouldn't budge. His heart raced as he glanced at the clock. He had just 30 minutes left to get to the interview. His mind raced. What should he do? He couldn't miss this opportunity. It was the perfect job for him, and if he didn't make it, he wasn't sure when another chance would come along. He tried to call a tow truck, but the wait time was long, and he could feel the minutes slipping away. Frustrated, Anthony grabbed his phone to cancel the interview. He hated doing this, but he knew it was the only option. As he typed the message, a thought crossed his mind. Maybe he could fix the car himself. He had some basic knowledge of cars, having worked on his old vehicle for years. If he could just get the tire changed, he might be able to get back on the road. It was a long shot, but he had no other choice. Grabbing the spare tire and the tools from the trunk, Anthony set to work. His hands were shaking, not just from the anxiety, but from the pressure of knowing that time was running out. As he worked, his thoughts raced. What if the car was beyond repair? What if he didn't make it to the interview? He had spent months preparing for this moment. He couldn't let it slip away just because of a flat tire. It was then that he heard a voice behind him. "Need some help, son?" Anthony turned around to see an older man standing a few feet away, leaning on a cane. The man had a kind expression, with a few wrinkles around his eyes and gray hair that had been worn by time. He wasn't dressed in anything fancy, just a simple jacket and jeans. But there was something about the way he stood, calm and composed, that made Anthony feel a little better. I'm trying to change the tire," Anthony said, his voice a little shaky. "But I'm running late and I don't think I'm going to make it in time." The older man nodded, stepping closer. "Let me give you a hand," he said with a smile. It's always better to work together. At first, Anthony hesitated. He didn't want to take up the man's time, especially when he was so stressed. But something about the older man's demeanor made him feel like it was okay. So he handed over the tire iron, and the two of them worked together to remove the flat tire and put the spare on. The older man didn't rush, taking his time with every step. He gave Anthony advice on how to make sure everything was tight and secure, and as they worked, they talked about life. The man shared stories about his younger days, about challenges he had faced, and how he had always found a way to keep moving forward. Anthony, despite his anxiety about missing the interview, found himself listening intently, appreciating the wisdom in the man's words. As they finished up, the man stood back and wiped his hands on a rag. "There you go," he said with a smile. "You're good to go now." Anthony was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you so much," he said, shaking the man's hand. "I don't know what I would have done without your help. I was about to give up, but you really saved me today." The older man chuckled. "Don't mention it, son. Sometimes life gives us a little push when we need it most." As Anthony got back into his car, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The tire was fixed, and he could still make it to the interview, albeit late. He thanked the man once again, and the man waved goodbye before walking down the street. Anthony watched him for a moment, then started the car and drove toward the interview, hoping that somehow he would still make it in time. The next few days were a blur for Anthony. He had gone to the interview, but his nerves and the stress of being late had made it hard for him to focus. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew he had done his best. The company seemed impressed with his skills and qualifications, but after he left, he tried not to get his hopes up. The truth was, he didn't expect to hear back from them. After all, he had missed the interview, and that wasn't something an employer would overlook. One evening, as Anthony was sitting in his apartment going over job listings, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but he answered it anyway. "Hello? Is this Anthony?" a voice asked on the other end. "Yes, this is him," he replied, confused. "Hi, Anthony. This is Daniel Wilkins, CEO of Wilkins Technologies," the voice said. Anthony's heart skipped a beat. He had heard of Wilkins Technologies. It was one of the biggest names in the tech world. "I'm calling to discuss your interview," Daniel continued. "We were impressed with your resume and the work you've done, but I wanted to speak to you personally. I also wanted to apologize for the way things went the other day." Anthony was stunned. "Wait, what do you mean? I thought I messed everything up." "I was late and—" Daniel laughed softly. "Well, that's the thing. I was the one who helped you change your tire the other day. I don't usually like to interfere with things, but I saw you struggling and I wanted to help." Anthony's mind was racing. The man who had helped him, it was the CEO of the company? He couldn't believe it. The older man he had helped had been Daniel Wilkins himself. "Wait, you're the CEO?" Anthony asked, still in disbelief. "That's right," Daniel said. "I saw your potential the moment we spoke, and I believe that you're someone who can really make a difference here at Wilkins Technologies." Anthony was speechless. He never could have imagined that helping someone with a flat tire would lead to an opportunity like this. I don't know what to say." "Thank you so much," Daniel chuckled. "You don't have to say anything. Just keep working hard and you'll fit right in. Let's get you started. How soon can you start?" The next day, after his missed interview, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling of disappointment. He had worked hard, studying for months and preparing every detail, only to miss the chance because of a small decision. It wasn't a huge mistake, but it felt big to him. As he sat in his small apartment that evening, thinking about everything that had happened, he kept going over the events in his mind. He had made the right choice in helping the old man. Of that, he was sure. There was no way he could have driven past someone in need. It wasn't who he was. But the reality of missing the job interview was something else. He had sacrificed a real opportunity for a stranger. Yes, he helped someone, but at what cost? The job he wanted seemed so close, and now it felt like it was slipping through his fingers. Tyler spent the next few days in a haze of uncertainty. He didn't want to seem down about it. His friends tried to cheer him up, and he did his best to stay positive. But deep down, he couldn't escape the feeling that he had let a huge chance slip away. And now, as he went through the motions of his daily routine, sending out resumes, applying for other jobs, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. One evening, when he was just finishing up another long job search session online, his phone rang. It was an unknown number, and Tyler hesitated before answering. His first instinct was to ignore it, thinking it might be another telemarketer. But something made him pick it up. "Hello?" he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Hello, is this Tyler?" a deep, calm voice asked on the other end. "Yes, this is Tyler," he replied, still unsure of who it might be. "This is John Reed," the voice continued. "I'm the CEO of Reed Tech, the company you applied to." "I just wanted to reach out to you personally." Tyler froze, his heart racing. The CEO, John Reed? The very same company he had applied to? The one he had missed the interview with? "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed, but I missed my interview," Tyler said quickly, feeling a little embarrassed. "Something came up and I wasn't able to make it. I should have been there, but I was helping someone with a flat tire." "I know," John Reed said, cutting him off. "Actually, I'm the person you helped." Tyler's breath caught in his throat. "The old man, the one he had helped with the tire, that was the CEO?" "I wanted to thank you personally," John continued. Not many people would have stopped to help a stranger like that, especially when they were running late. "It shows character, and that's exactly the kind of person we want at Reed Tech." Tyler was stunned. He had no idea what to say. It felt surreal. He had helped someone without even realizing who they were, and now it seemed like his good deed was paying off in a way he could never have imagined. I don't know what to say," Tyler managed to stammer. John laughed lightly. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that we're still very interested in you. I've read through your application, and I think you'd be a great fit for our team. We don't often get people like you, someone who understands the value of helping others and doing what's right." even when it's inconvenient. Tyler felt his heart swell with gratitude. He couldn't believe it. This was happening. He had never expected something like this. He had always thought that getting a job at a company like ReadTech would be based on experience and skills alone. But now, it seemed like his actions had made all the difference. "We'd like to reschedule your interview," John said. "If you're still interested, of course." Tyler's mind raced. Of course he was interested. This was his chance. Not just any chance, but one that felt like it was meant to be. A second opportunity, one he would make sure to never miss. "Yes, I'm definitely interested," Tyler said, his voice steady now. "I'll be there. Just tell me when and where." John Reed agreed to set up a new interview date for the following week. Tyler hung up the phone, his hands shaking slightly from the excitement. It was hard to believe what had just happened. A random act of kindness had turned into the opportunity of a lifetime. He couldn't wait to show John Reed that he was more than just the guy who helped with the tire. He was ready to prove that he had what it took to succeed at ReadTech. In the days leading up to the rescheduled interview, Tyler couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. He had always believed in doing the right thing, even if it didn't seem like it would lead anywhere. He had been taught that hard work, integrity, and compassion mattered. But this was something else. This was a reminder that sometimes the universe has a way of giving back when you least expect it. Tyler prepared as best he could for the second interview. He didn't take it lightly. After all, he was given a second chance and he wasn't about to waste it. He spent hours researching ReadTech's latest projects, studying their values, and making sure he was ready for anything the interviewers might throw his way. On the day of the interview, Tyler arrived at ReadTech's office building with plenty of time to spare. He was dressed sharply, his nerves a little calmer than the first time he had gone for the interview. He walked through the sleek modern lobby of the building and felt a sense of excitement. This was where he wanted to be. This was the future he had been working so hard for. When the moment finally came, Tyler was greeted by none other than John Reed himself. The CEO stood up with a smile, shaking his hand firmly. "Tyler, it's good to see you again," he said. "Thank you for giving me another chance." "Mr. Reed," Tyler replied, trying to sound confident, though he still couldn't quite believe it. John motioned for him to sit, and the interview began. It was nothing like the first time. This time, Tyler was more relaxed, knowing that he had already made an impression. John asked about his experience, his skills, and his long-term goals. Tyler answered each question thoughtfully, making sure to emphasize his passion for technology, his determination to succeed, and his commitment to working hard. As the interview continued, Tyler felt like he was in the zone. He had spent so much time preparing, and now it was all coming together. John seemed genuinely interested in his answers, nodding and asking follow-up questions that showed he was paying attention. After about an hour, the interview came to a close. John smiled and stood up. "Thank you, Tyler. That was a great conversation. We'll be in touch soon, but I think you did well." Tyler stood up and shook his hand again. "Thank you for your time. I appreciate it." As he left the building, Tyler couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. No matter what happened next, he knew that he had given it his all. He had taken a leap of faith by helping that stranger, and now that act had led him here. The future seemed brighter now, and for the first time in a long time, Tyler felt certain that the right opportunities were on the horizon. A few days later, Tyler received an email that confirmed his hopes. ReadTech had decided to offer him the position. They were impressed not only with his skills and qualifications, but also with his character, the very same character he had shown when he stopped to help a man in need. As Tyler read the email, a smile spread across his face. His act of kindness had turned into the best decision of his life. He had found a job at a company that valued more than just work ethic. They valued integrity and kindness too. And as Tyler walked into his first day at ReadTech, he knew one thing for sure. Sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't just help others. It can change your life in ways you never imagined. Devin stood in the lobby of the building, still trying to shake off the feeling of missing his interview. He had never thought he'd end up in this situation. The moment he had planned for so long, the chance he had worked so hard for was slipping away. He had chosen to help the old man with the flat tire instead of going to the interview, and now he was wondering if he had made the right decision. As he glanced around the lobby, Trying to figure out what to do next, something unexpected caught his eye. The old man, the one Devon had helped earlier, was sitting calmly in one of the chairs near the elevator. He wasn't wearing the same clothes anymore. Instead, he was dressed in a sharp suit, his shoes polished and his presence commanding in a way that seemed out of place in a place like this. Devon's heart skipped a beat as he walked closer to the man. "Wait a minute, you're the same guy from the street," he said, his voice betraying his confusion. The old man looked up from his seat with a warm smile. "Yes, I'm the one you helped. I suppose I should have introduced myself properly earlier, but there was no need for formalities." Devon's mind was racing now. The man he had helped was not just an ordinary person. He was someone important, someone powerful. Devon's heart was pounding as he tried to make sense of what was happening. He could hardly believe that the person he had helped was now sitting in front of him in a completely different light. I didn't expect to see you here," Devon stammered. He felt awkward, unsure of what to say. The situation had taken such a strange turn that he wasn't sure what was real anymore. The old man chuckled softly, his voice gentle but full of warmth. "I imagine you're surprised. I don't often dress this way. I'm usually just a regular guy, but sometimes appearances are deceptive." He looked Devon up and down and continued, "You might be wondering who I really am." Devon nodded, his curiosity piqued. He had to know more. "Who are you?" The old man paused for a moment, his eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. "I'm the CEO of the company you were supposed to interview with today," he revealed, his tone matter-of-fact, as if it was no big deal. Devon's jaw dropped. He blinked several times, trying to process what he had just heard. The man he had helped with a flat tire, the one who seemed like just a friendly elderly stranger, was the CEO of the very company he had been desperate to join. His mind was spinning as he tried to grasp the full extent of the situation. "You're the CEO?" Devon repeated, still in shock. He wasn't sure if he had heard correctly. How could this be? The old man seemed so ordinary. The CEO of a big company should have been someone with an air of professionalism, someone polished and commanding. But this man, this kind man who had been stranded on the side of the road, didn't fit the usual image of a CEO. The old man smiled as though he understood Devon's confusion. "I suppose I don't look like what you expected, do I?" he asked, leaning back in his chair with a chuckle. "But that's the thing about people. We often judge others based on appearances, and we miss out on what really matters. I've been CEO of this company for years, and I've seen firsthand how people can get caught up in titles, positions, and the way someone looks. But what really matters is character, and I saw yours yesterday when you chose to stop and help me." Devon was speechless. He hadn't expected any of this. All he had wanted to do was help a stranger, and now it seemed like that simple act was leading him down a completely different path. He had never imagined that the person he had helped could have such an impact on his life. The CEO continued, his voice warm but firm. "You missed your interview, and I can't say that I'm not disappointed. But I also think that sometimes life has a way of showing us who we really are. You chose to help someone in need without thinking about yourself, without worrying about what you might lose. You didn't hesitate. That, Devon, is something I value more than any interview or resume." Devon was still trying to process everything. He felt a mix of emotions: surprise, confusion, gratitude, and even a little fear. "I didn't mean to miss the interview," he said quietly, his voice tinged with regret. "I just saw someone who needed help. I couldn't just leave him there." The CEO nodded, his expression softening. "That's exactly what I mean. You didn't just see a problem. You saw a person who needed help and you stepped in. That says more about your character than any answer you could have given in an interview room." Devon felt a sense of warmth spread through him as the CEO's words sank in. He hadn't expected to hear something so meaningful today, especially from someone as important as the CEO of the company he had hoped to join. He had always thought that success came from being the best, from being the smartest or most talented. But now he realized that there was something even more important, the kind of person you were when no one was watching. "You see," the CEO continued, "I've built this company on values like integrity, kindness, and a sense of responsibility. I believe that the people who work for us should be more than just skilled. They should also be good, caring people. I'm looking for people who will do the right thing even when no one is looking." Devon felt a knot loosen in his chest. He had always believed in doing the right thing, but now it seemed that doing so had led him to a new opportunity. The CEO had already made up his mind. Devon's character had already spoken louder than any interview performance ever could. The CEO stood up and extended his hand toward Devon. "I want to offer you a chance to join us, to work here with people who share the same values you do. You don't need a formal interview. You've already shown me everything I need to know." Devon's eyes widened. He hadn't expected this. He had missed his interview, but somehow it didn't matter. What mattered was that he had chosen to help someone in need, and that had led to an opportunity he couldn't have dreamed of. With a deep breath, Devon took the CEO's hand, shaking it firmly. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I won't let you down." The CEO smiled, nodding. "I know you won't." As Devon walked out of the building that day, he felt a sense of awe and wonder. He had made a choice that had changed everything for him. What had started as a simple act of kindness had led him to an opportunity beyond his wildest dreams. He realized that sometimes life wasn't about following the traditional path or sticking to the plan. It was about doing the right thing, even when no one was watching, and sometimes that could change everything. The next morning, Jalen couldn't stop thinking about what had happened the day before. He had missed his big opportunity, the one he'd been waiting for, and all because he had stopped to help someone in need. It seemed like an incredible coincidence, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized it was something deeper. Jalen was no stranger to hard work. He had spent months applying to different jobs, hoping to get a break, any break. He had seen others around him get opportunities, and he knew he was just as capable. But this, missing an interview for an unexpected act of kindness, was something he had never planned. And now it seemed as though that very decision had led him to an even greater chance. As he was finishing his breakfast, the phone rang. At first, Jalen assumed it was a telemarketer or a wrong number. But when he saw the company name flashing on the screen, his heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the company where he had missed his interview just the day before. He hesitated for a second, his mind racing with the thought that maybe they were calling to say that the position had already been filled. But with a deep breath, he answered the phone. "Hello? This is Jalen," he said, his voice steady but with a hint of nervous excitement. "Hello, Jalen, this is David, the CEO of the company you were scheduled to interview with yesterday," came the reply. Jalen's breath caught in his throat. The CEO himself was on the phone with him. "I wanted to personally thank you for helping my father yesterday," David continued. "He's the man you helped with the flat tire." Jalen froze. He hadn't connected the elderly man to the CEO at all. He had simply seen someone in need and helped them. The fact that the man he had assisted was the father of the CEO was something Jalen couldn't have imagined in 1,000 years. "I wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude for your kindness," David said, his voice warm and sincere. "It's rare to find someone who's willing to go out of their way to help a stranger, especially when they have something important to do." Jalen felt a surge of humility. "It was no problem at all. I just did what seemed right at the time," he said, his voice sounding more confident now. David chuckled on the other end. "It's not just about doing what's right. It's about having the integrity to help others even when it's inconvenient for you. That kind of character is hard to come by, and I admire it." Jalen was still trying to process the situation. The CEO had not only noticed his good deed, but he was now taking the time to speak to him personally. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that," Jalen replied, his heart racing. David paused for a moment before continuing. "I know you missed your interview yesterday, but I'd like to offer you a second chance. I understand that things didn't go according to plan, but I'd like to reschedule and meet with you in person. You've got the kind of qualities that we look for in our team." Jalen could hardly believe what he was hearing. Here he was, worried that his chances were gone for good, and the CEO himself was offering him another opportunity. "You mean you're still interested in meeting with me?" Jalen asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "Of course," David replied. "You've already shown that you have the drive, the kindness, and the reliability that we value, and I believe you'd be a great fit for our company. I'll personally make sure that we arrange another interview for you." Jalen couldn't contain the smile that spread across his face. This was the moment he had been waiting for, but it had come in the most unexpected way. He had thought his chances were over, but instead they were just beginning. The second chance that David had given him felt like a gift, one that he wasn't going to waste. "Thank you, sir. I'll be there as soon as you want me, Jalen said, his voice now filled with hope and excitement. David smiled on the other end. Great, we'll reach out soon with the details. I look forward to meeting you in person, Jalen. After hanging up the phone, Jalen stood there for a moment staring out the window as everything sank in. He had helped a stranger, someone he didn't know. And now that simple act of kindness was opening doors for him. It was a humbling thought. In that moment, he realized that sometimes life had a way of working things out in ways that didn't always make sense, but always ended up being for the best. The next few days felt like a whirlwind. Jalen focused on preparing for the interview. He was determined to show David that his decision to offer him another chance wasn't a mistake. This time he wasn't going to just hope for success, he was going to make it happen. The day of the interview arrived, and Jalen was feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. He had spent hours researching the company, preparing answers to common interview questions and practicing how he would present himself. He knew this was his chance and he wasn't going to let it slip away. When he arrived at the company's headquarters, he was greeted by a friendly receptionist who led him to a conference room. As he sat down, his nerves started to settle. He felt more at ease than he had expected, though he couldn't help but think about what had brought him here. His mind kept going back to the moment when he had stopped to help the elderly man on the side of the road. What if he hadn't stopped? What if he had driven past like everyone else might have? He wouldn't be sitting here right now. A few minutes later, David entered the room, extending his hand in greeting. He was just as warm and approachable as Jalen had imagined. After exchanging pleasantries, they sat down, and the interview began. David asked Jalen about his background, his work ethic, and his goals. Jalen spoke with confidence, but there was a deeper sense of gratitude in his words. He knew he was being given a rare opportunity, and he didn't take it for granted. David listened attentively, nodding as Jalen spoke. When Jalen finished, David leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You've got everything we're looking for, Jalen," he said. "But more than that, I respect the fact that you chose to help someone when you had other plans. That's the kind of person we want on our team." Jalen felt a sense of pride, knowing that his values and character had impressed David. It wasn't just about the job. It was about being someone who made the right decisions, even when no one was looking. By the end of the interview, Jalen had a strong feeling that this was the start of something big. He had worked hard to get to this point, and now it seemed like everything was falling into place. Days later, Jalen received the call. He had gotten the job. The excitement and relief he felt were overwhelming. He had done it. He had turned a missed opportunity into a life-changing moment. His act of kindness had led him here, and he knew this was only the beginning. As Jalen reflected on everything that had happened, he realized that sometimes the universe had a way of guiding us toward the right path. The decision to help someone in need had not only changed his life, but it also reminded him that doing the right thing was always worth it. It wasn't just about getting ahead, it was about staying true to who you are, even when no one was watching. And in the end, that made all the difference. Derek walked into the office with a sense of nervous excitement. His palms were slightly sweaty and his mind was racing with thoughts of the interview. He had come a long way since that morning when he missed the original interview. A few days had passed since he received the unexpected call from the CEO, and he was still processing it all. His heart had raced when the CEO told him that he was the man Derek had helped with the flat tire. It was still hard to believe that such a simple act of kindness would lead to an opportunity like this. As he stood at the entrance of the sleek, modern office building, Derek took a deep breath. He was finally here. The job he had wanted was now within his reach, and the CEO who had offered him a second chance had already seen something in him that no one else had. Derek couldn't help but feel a little out of place. He was a young man from a humble background, but here he was, about to sit down with the head of a company. The receptionist smiled at him warmly and led him to a conference room where the CEO was waiting. Ethan Caldwell, the man who had made this unexpected offer, stood up to greet him. Derek felt a bit intimidated by the man's calm confidence, but he knew that this was his moment. "Glad you could make it," Ethan said with a genuine smile. "I know you've probably been through a lot, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come in today." Derek smiled, a little nervous but grateful for Ethan's kindness. "Thank you for giving me a second chance," he said, trying to sound confident despite the butterflies in his stomach. "I'm just glad I didn't miss out on this opportunity entirely." Ethan chuckled. You know, I have to admit I wasn't expecting that kind of gesture when I was on the side of the road. Most people would have just driven by, but you stopped to help, and that says a lot about your character. Derek nodded, his face flushing slightly. I just couldn't leave you there. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time. Ethan gestured to the chair across from him, signaling Derek to sit down. And that's why we're here today. It's not just about what you know. It's about who you are. We need people who are willing to go the extra mile, whether it's helping someone with a flat tire or taking the time to really make a difference in a company. Derek felt a wave of relief wash over him. Ethan wasn't here to judge him for missing the interview or for being late. Instead, he was here to get to know the person Derek truly was. That made all the difference in the world. The interview itself was unlike any Derek had ever experienced. Instead of the usual list of standard questions about his qualifications, Ethan asked about Derek's life, his background, and his values. He wanted to understand why Derek was the way he was, what motivated him to work hard, and what drove him to be the person who would stop and help a stranger on the side of the road. Derek found himself speaking more openly than he had in past interviews. He talked about growing up in a small town, where opportunities were scarce, and how his parents had taught him the value of hard work and kindness. He told Ethan about the struggles he faced, balancing his schoolwork with jobs to help support his family, and how he always believed that doing the right thing was more important than anything else. Ethan listened intently, nodding occasionally and making notes. Derek felt like he was being seen for the first time, not just as a candidate for a job, but as a person with a story and a future. He had always been told that success was about impressing people with skills and experience. But here, in this room, it felt like success was about being true to oneself. After a long conversation, Ethan leaned back in his chair and smiled. You know, Derek, I think you'd be a great addition to this team. You have something special. You've shown resilience, integrity, and a willingness to help others, and that's exactly the kind of person we want here. I'm happy to offer you the position. Derek's jaw dropped, and for a moment he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Wait, you mean I got the job? He asked, hardly able to contain his excitement. Ethan nodded, smiling warmly. Yes, Derek, you did. We'll send you all the details soon, but I wanted to let you know personally. I believe in giving people opportunities, and I think you're ready for this one. Derek's heart swelled with gratitude and disbelief. He had done it. After everything, after the flat tire, the missed interview, and the uncertainty of his future, he had landed the job. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the turning point in his life. As he left the office, Derek couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and excitement. He had made it. But he also knew that this was only the beginning. He wasn't just getting a job. He was getting a chance to prove himself, to show the world that hard work and integrity could take him further than anything else. Back at his apartment, Derek couldn't wait to share the news with his family. They had always supported him, even when things were tough, and now he had something to celebrate. He called his mother first, the woman who had raised him to be kind and hardworking, the woman who had taught him that the value of a person was in their actions, not their status. Mom, I got the job, Derek said, his voice full of emotion. His mother's voice cracked with happiness. I knew you would, baby. I've always known you had it in you. You've worked so hard and now it's paying off. Derek grinned, feeling a tear slip down his cheek. Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done it without your support. As he hung up the phone, Derek sat down and thought about everything that had led him to this moment. It wasn't just about getting a job at a tech company. It was about the values he had carried with him throughout his life. The importance of kindness, the willingness to help others, and the belief that doing the right thing always mattered. Those were the things that had set him apart, and now they were the things that had brought him success. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Derek began his new role at the company, and he quickly learned the ropes. There were challenges, of course, but Derek embraced them with the same dedication he had shown in every part of his life. He was determined to succeed not just for himself but for his family, who had supported him all along the way. Ethan, the CEO, became more than just a boss. He became a mentor, offering advice and guidance whenever Derek needed it. The lessons he had learned about resilience, integrity, and hard work were paying off, and Derek was grateful for the second chance he had been given. As time went on, Derek earned the respect of his colleagues and superiors. His ability to think critically, his willingness to lend a helping hand, and his strong work ethic all made him an invaluable member of the team. He knew that his journey wasn't over, that every day was an opportunity to learn and grow, but he also knew that he was on the right path. Looking back on everything, Derek couldn't help but feel grateful for the unexpected twists in his journey. Helping an old man with a flat tire had turned out to be the moment that changed his life. It had led him to an opportunity he never could have imagined, and it had reminded him that sometimes the right thing to do isn't always the easiest. But it was always worth it, and as Derek continued to thrive in his new role, he never forgot the lesson that had brought him here, that kindness, integrity, and a willingness to help others could open doors and change lives.